Hi, I'm Patrick Bobilin. You might know me from my dog food commercials. I ran for city council in New York City's District 5, and I also spent a lot of time, sometimes even getting paid, to write about politics on the internet.
And I'm Victoria Cambranes. I also ran for city council this year in District 33 in North Brooklyn. And I'm a Greenpoint native, and I also have a cat named Tyrion.
Wow. And so anyway, we're assessing the Democratic Party in 2017 after our first year of Donald Trump, and we saw, a wild wave of protests and a lot of people getting involved for the first time, and we're seeing a lot of seats flip around the country, and I think it speaks to the fact that there's a lot of change coming. And so we want to keep in check our Democratic Party, and we want to be critical of it as much as we are committed to it in some ways. And so what we've done is we've created
Top 10 Democratic disasters of 2017.
I like that. So number 10.
Number 10, Cy Vance.
Manhattan District Attorney.
Exactly. He was supposed to go after Jared and Ivanka Trump 5 years ago for fraud by misleading their prospective buyers, condo buyers in their building over the sales and popularity of the units.
So that was at the Trump Soho Hotel. They misrepresented how well it was selling, how highly it was valued, and there was a lot of evidence that was handed to District Attorney Cy Vance.
And he decided not to prosecute after he allegedly got $25,000 and then another $32,000 3 months after he dropped the case.
Number 9, I would have to say, happened on the 4th of July, our great patriotic holiday, where we would expect the great spirit of the revolution to take hold of people, and it did, and brought our great Democratic representatives, Carolyn Maloney and Chuck Schumer, to where Jared and Ivanka to their house in the Hamptons for their 4th of July party. They were two of the people who took up that hashtag resistance mantle most vehemently, most quickly. And I think anytime millionaires are suddenly on board with a revolution, we should be skeptical.
Number 8?
Number 8.
Okay, so the big MTA battle of 2017 between how big Andrew Cuomo's balls are and how big Bill de Blasio's balls are. So the MTA battle rages on. It's continuing to be a decrepit system that is still using 1930s signaling. But the city council and local government has been pushing for billions of dollars of superficial renovations to a lot of these stations. So I guess that's one step in the right direction.
And one of the big issues is that about 30 or 40 years ago, I don't know exactly, we handed over control of the MTA from the city to the state. And so now there is a higher number of state-run, governor-run seats on the MTA board than there are city-run seats. And so this creates this endless battle between the governor and the mayor of New York City over who gets to control the MTA.
Yeah, if 65% of people in New York City are experiencing delays to work, then this is really actually costing us big money in New York City. Just the cost of the workforce being late every day, the cost of people not getting to places of worship, appointments, doctor's appointments, and anything that you can think of that you need to do in the city, you need to take public transport if you're not a millionaire.
Number 7, I would have to say, what happened? So Hillary Clinton's book tour this year, could have happened any other time, could have happened years from now, not in the year when we're dealing most critically with the first changes that the Trump administration has introduced to our country. This cash and carry government, which is like running rampant right now, would be greatly helped by a big personality who had enough support to win the 2016 presidential popular vote, to have them come out and to fight against Trump, to help Puerto Rico, which is struggling right now and being treated like it's some third world country and not part of the United States of America, to save healthcare, which has been devastated by the tax bill, and people of color, working class people. These are the people who gave her those 3 million more votes than Donald Trump got, and yet, where she's at Barnes and Noble signing copies of her book, and they're showing us that it's ego that matters, not really values, not really moving towards changing the system. And we don't need that in the future. We don't need that in 2018. So people like Hillary Clinton, people who don't aren't here to support new candidates and to support the future of the Democratic Party, please sit down in 2018.
Number 6. So the Weinstein effect has been far-reaching in 2017. It started the Me Too campaign, and all these women coming out and basically speaking out about sexual harassment and assault. We come back to Cy Vance, who did actually have Weinstein in a sting operation, where he was on tape with one of his accusers. And he had a host of other pieces of evidence. But suddenly, when he receives a campaign donation,
after meeting with a lawyer representing Harvey Weinstein, Cy Vance suddenly just couldn't bring himself to convict. So
that happened, and it seems that it always comes back to these election campaigns and donations.
So number 5, I would put as the Democrats' failure to speak out against the Israel Anti-Boycott Act. This is an act which, in a world where Citizens United allows corporations to have the same kind of voice as voters, individuals and corporations and public institutions have been divesting from their stake in Israel's economy because of their solidarity for Palestine. And if you ask young Democrats, if you ask young people across the country, we overwhelmingly support a two-state solution. We overwhelmingly support that the violence against the Palestinians ends. And so when people or companies or educational institutions vote to take out their financial holdings from supporting Israel, they should be allowed to do that. And yet Democrats aren't listening, and Democrats aren't hearing what people want and the direction people want to go into the future. Thankfully, Kirsten Gillibrand changed her vote. After the senator changed her vote, we still saw overwhelming support from the Democratic Party. This is a party that's not listening to its base. It's not listening to what people are asking for around the world, what other first world countries are asking for. And we will be left in the dark, and we will be left behind if we don't support the kind of values that the rest of the world is moving towards in a progressive manner.
Okay, number 4 is Nancy Pelosi and her unswitched on mic during her travel ban standoff with Trump. So you had Chuck Schumer on camera at his separate press conference crying, talking about how cruel it was to institute a travel ban, and then not really doing very much else after that. And then Nancy Pelosi, who also embarrassingly did not have her mic on the entire time she was meant to speak, tried to speak anyway and was famously memed into her "Is this mic on?"
To support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Can't hear? Bring it closer.
This Democratic Party is aging, and it's slower, and it's behind the times. And this is a Democratic Party that's trying to constantly sell us on the idea that these 70-year-old people are evolving their stances on things somewhere between the youthful machinations of their 60s. And I'm just not buying it anymore. I just don't believe that after years of not coming out and vehemently supporting these things, that suddenly they see the light in their 70s. I think they see the wave of voters moving in a certain direction, and they don't want to be left behind. Number 3, I would name Al Franken's apology on the Senate floor. I watched this happen live, and I was completely embarrassed, because this was, another example of a lack of accountability. If 2017 was about one thing, it's about newfound accountability. That's the Time magazine cover where you see the Silence Breakers being given the cover, famous women and, women who still need to remain anonymous for the continuation of their careers and their lives. Al Franken didn't hear this siren call, apparently, and he didn't give voice to the people who were accusing him. He spent the time, declaiming Donald Trump as, this great monster who committed sexual assault and bragged about it. But this was not the time. This was the time to be different. This was the time to stand out. But what did we get but sort of the same old partisan tricks? And unfortunately, people like Al Franken are not the future of the Democratic Party. But thankfully, we've got a lot of new energy of people getting out there. And so we don't need people like Al Franken anymore.
Okay, so at number 2 we have Melissa Mark-Viverito, City Council Speaker, who has been termed out. And her Board of Elections scandal in the last throes of her power, trying to get her friend Andy Peshchak into the position for Board of Elections Commissioner. Now, her decision to do that would bypass the Manhattan Democratic leader Keith Wright's ability to elect a Board of Elections Commissioner.
By having the different district leaders who are in assembly districts voting, so it's a sort of democratic process rather than a process of appointment.
She allowed this to happen in a backdoor deal and wanted to persuade all of her fellow city council members to vote her way, because she needed that control. She needed to have someone in there who is an ally of hers.
Because this kind of indicates the fact that she plans on running for a higher office or another office in the near future, and so she wants someone who can sort of help grease the wheels for that inevitable run. In as much as I think we're both very critical of this undemocratic process, we have this added layer of the judge coming to speak out and saying he's never seen something so corrupt in all of his years as he looks at Keith Wright's case against Melissa Mark-Viverito. However, this judge will be up for election very soon and will need Democratic Party leader Keith Wright's endorsement in order to win his election. So the circle kind of, yeah, it's a spiral that sort of never seems to end.
All right, number 1.
Number 1, this is about the second most useless Dougie Jones of this year. Did you watch Twin Peaks? No Twin Peaks fans?
Hello!
Like the hapless Dougie Jones from Twin Peaks, our character, Doug Jones, now senator from Alabama, thankfully beat the pedophile and sexual assault accused candidate, Roy Moore.
Which I have to say was such a tough battle. I mean, defeating a pedophile in these days,
I mean, it was only a couple of percent that Doug Jones won by. And this might speak to the fact that we don't know much about Doug Jones.
What's happening to me?
Someone manufactured you.
What?
Thankfully, black voters showed up in Alabama in record numbers because white voters, to an overwhelming majority in the 60s and 70%, depending on gender, voted for the pedophile cartoon cowboy who showed up to his polling place on a horse named Sassy, despite the fact being, vaulted into office by black votes and by people of color, overwhelmingly in the majorities of 95 percentile. He's committed to hiring an all-white staff because he feels pressure from more conservative Alabamans who would apparently really give a shit who's running his office. He says he's not sure how he would have voted for the recent GOP tax bill, and he's downplayed the importance of dealing with sexual assault and holding men accountable. So I don't know
Including Trump.
Yeah, I don't know what Dougie Jones is useful for.
For a purpose. But I think now that's been fulfilled.
And honestly, in Alabama, while white voters are playing a game, people of color, queer people are playing for survival.
Right.
If there's one thing we definitely learned this year, and this might be 1B from what I think is the greatest movie of this year and maybe this decade, Jordan Peele's Get Out, we've learned that the words of white liberalism don't mean anything. Because they can be weaponized by people who have completely inverted interest to the liberation and the constructive progression of our society.
So that's our top 10 most disastrous Democratic Party moments of 2017.
And we hope that 2018 is going to be a lot better.
And I think we also have to inspire people to have a bit of hope for 2018.
Absolutely.
There's people like Patrick, there's people like me. We're not going anywhere. We love this city. We want to help improve it. So stay tuned and find out what we're going to be doing next year as well.
So have a happy new year. Let's look forward to 2018. Let's register to vote. Let's get everyone involved. And let's stay engaged every day. When you feel mad, forget your outrage. Turn your outrage into something productive.
And forget what's going on with Trump and his scandals. Focus on local politics. Find out what people like Patrick and me are doing in the coming year, because we really want to help improve things here locally. It's so much more important than anything else happening outside of this state.
Hell yeah.
Suffocating till the